Welcome, everybody. So, this morning, we'd like to continue this mission moving forward with helping all of you guys have better results. And one of the things that I'd really like to see happen is our conversion percentage starts to really go up. So that if we have 20 new patients in a month, we have, 60, 70, 80% or more of them committing to the care that you recommend, not negotiating, not making deals, not asking to pay as they go, but actually committing to your recommendations because they understand what you're trying to deliver, because you're so certain with what you're trying to deliver, and therefore your results start to skyrocket, start to go through the roof. You have all these people that are getting fantastic results, not because they're getting pain relief, but because they truly understand spinal and neurological correction, and you're seeing objective findings and they understand why. And then they go tell other people about that. They don't tell other people, their friends, their family members, that, my gosh, Dr. Stephen, Dr. Christine, Dr. Kevin are great doctors for back pain or sciatica or headaches. They go tell them that these people know what they're doing as far as correcting your spine and nervous system. And that's what we really want people to understand. So, what we're going to go through today is we're going to go through 10 strategies on how to change the core paradigm. It's going to build on what we talked about last week with the freedom close, but it's what it really is meant to do is help people to make the right decision because they have the right information, and you give them the opportunity to process that information and then make a decision for their own health. And so that's really what this is all about. So again, I'm going to share my screen here. All right, so this is really, we call this the core paradigm shift. And what is a paradigm shift? When you talk about a paradigm shift, it's really changing, helping people change their interpretation of something. They have a belief system in something. And of course, here in North America, people have a belief system that the healthcare is meant to treat symptoms. We are different than that. Treating symptoms is sickness care. We don't practice sickness care. We practice health care. We practice corrective, structural, neurological, corrective improvement. That's what we do in chiropractic. So, what we want to do is we want to help people to understand that their paradigm has to shift, and to get the most out of their life, they have to start thinking differently. So the core paradigm shift. So really it's from a situation where people say, they come into your office and say, I have pain. Can you fix my pain? We want them to start thinking, I want my spine, my nervous system, and my body functioning at their highest potential for life. I want to be connected. I want to be clear. I want to be functioning at my ultimate, my optimal function throughout from birth to death. So remember that people are not resisting chiropractic care. They want chiropractic care, or the version of chiropractic care that they think they want, because they've made the commitment to come into your office. But what they do resist is they have this resistance to changing their identity and a resistance to understanding their own health. So what we have to do is we have to set the stage for them to make that shift, start to think differently. So your role here is not to try to convince them. Your role here is to create this awareness and clarity and this different context so the patient can then see what was previously not seen or previously invisible. So this is the first strategy. It's called latent pain to a realized consequence. So in other words, the thinking is, I'm fine, to I can't ignore this anymore. This is a problem that I have to address. There's no choice. If I want to have a future in this life, I have to address this. So most patients arrive with some sort of symptom. I mean, we can all agree on that, whatever symptom it is, and not the understanding. So the real issue is not the pain. It's really what we're trying to help them understand is they have progressive spinal degeneration. They have silent nervous system interference and dysfunction, gradual loss of adaptability. These are important things to understand. The loss of adaptability, the energy, and the resilience. People need to really understand that subluxation, as we talk about subluxation, is not a static thing. It's not a situation. It's a process. Subluxation is a process. And subluxation is not a structural thing. And this is where I get really concerned, as we teach structural correction and structural care, we have to be very careful in the fact that you don't become a spinal mechanic. We have to make sure people understand that this is a neurological problem. Subluxation affects their neurology, it affects their life and their function, and it will get worse. In every situation, it absolutely will get worse.
If we can hang here for a sec, Colin, 'cause I think this is a monster part where I find docs who really connect well and really get the best results with their patients really understand this piece. So I think it's important we hang out here. Now, structure is important. The reason we address it, if structure goes wrong, that's what interferes with the nervous system, and that's what causes the function issue, right? So that's where you see the function changes. But the biggest thing you understand is it's not that and this I find patients who do really well, this is what they grasp, and it's because how we explain it as well. But their symptom isn't because of the lack of curve in their neck or because the lack of curve puts pressure on the nervous system, is because the structural damage interferes with the nervous system, and now they cannot adapt to the environment, so it's struggling. It's struggling, and the symptoms become because of the struggle. So the symptoms, like Colin's saying, the peak of the iceberg, there's so much else that the body's struggling with that you may not just have symptoms for yet, but it's not adapting well to anything in the environment. And what makes subluxation so bad is we all know neurologically the very thing that's supposed to heal everything in the body is the nervous system, right? That's the master controller. It tells what cells to do what, immune system to do what, repair to happen where. And the reason subluxation is so bad is it's turning off the very thing designed to like heal it or correct it. That's why it's progressive. That's why unless you do something to stop or reverse, it continues to get worse. So that's something you as a doc got to make sure you grasp. You got to make sure your team understands it. Whoever's explaining care or re-signs or re-exams, you got to understand that part, because if not, it's very, very easy. And I can tell you, I spent, when I first got into correction, before I get to max living, but probably the first 5 years, I was like a neck curve specialist. But there was nothing, but it got very, like Colin talked about, mechanical, and you're not going to see the results. People don't get it. Again, they still become very symptom based. You got to understand structure determines function, and that determines our body's ability to act and react inside the environment.
So one thing that we as chiropractors really have to understand, we have to look in the mirror and say, okay, the patient comes in with pain, but the pain is not the problem. Okay, we have to be the first ones to admit the pain is not the problem. There is an underlying cause of that pain, of that symptom. So we can't be too hung up focusing and spending time on the symptom. Pain is simply the late stage indicator, not the cause. So how do we apply this principle? Instead of focusing on where does it hurt, we have to stop asking so much about their symptomatic presentation. And we start asking questions like, how long do you want your body to function at its best? What happens if this spinal pattern continues for 5, 10, 20 years? My famous question that I used all the time was, if this does not get corrected, is this getting better or worse? It's a simple question. It has a yes or no answer. And ultimately, everybody gets it correct. It's going to get worse. And that is such a powerful question because it helps the patient process. It's a simple answer, but as soon as they can process it and verbalize it and admit it, it becomes real in their mind. And that's how you start changing paradigms. If your nervous system could talk, what would it be asking for right now? It's kind of a weird question, but it helps them to understand that your nervous system needs help here. Okay? It's not about treating your pain, it's about removing interference. So use this future pacing physiology, not fear. So the psychology behind this is that humans don't act to gain pleasure. They try to avoid future loss once it becomes emotionally real. So you're touching their emotions here. So when patients feel the cost of inaction, there's more degeneration, there's more dependency, there's diminished quality of life. These are the things that we have to start to focus on. So they move from this reaction to more of a responsibility. Okay, so strategy number 2. Perceived control. Patients like to feel like they're in control and it's their decision. They're not getting forced into the decision. What happens is if you find you're being overbearing with a patient, and yeah, the patient just says yes because they're saying what they think you want to hear, and yes, they might sign on to your care plan, or they might say yes, you get started, and you go home and go, yeah, I went 3 for 3 in my doctor's report, or yeah, I went 5 for 5. But then three of those patients after the fourth or fifth visit call up and say, no, I'm quitting. And that's what happens because they never really had the chance or the opportunity to process the information properly and own it. They just responded because they felt pressure in that situation. So here's the chiropractic application of this is the perceived control. So rather than say you need 36 visits, instead say, would you like to understand how to correct this underlying problem? So, in other words, you're giving them the opportunity to choose corrective care. Would you prefer to address this short term for pain relief, or would you prefer to address this longer term to correct the underlying problem so this doesn't keep coming back? These are powerful questions. So the chiropractor guides the conversation, and then you're allowing the patient to decide. And the whole psychology behind it is that you're creating this autonomy. You're creating this ability for the patient to feel like they're in control. And that is a core human need. People want to feel like they're in control. When patients feel controlled, they resist. When they feel ownership, they commit. And long term corrective care requires self authorship, it requires this autonomy, not compliance. They need to feel like they've chosen the care plan, not been pushed into it. Any questions? Straightforward? Okay, strategy 3. The pit of darkness. This is exciting. The pit of darkness. Should be a writer. Doctor vulnerability and chiropractic truth. Okay, so this is the chiropractic application of the pit of darkness. So share the failure of the symptom-based healthcare model. And I tell you what, if you're not talking about the tragedy of medicine, you need to wake up because this is people need to understand this. The tragedy of what's going on in our medical system is terrible. People are dying because of our medical system. And it's crazy the stuff that you hear when you start digging into it. So most people come in thinking pain is the problem. And again, early in my career, I mean, when we graduated from school, especially if you're graduating from a school that teaches pain-based philosophy, the evidence-based schools, they're the ones that are telling you that pain is the problem. And in fact, I remember early in practice, we thought we might want to change the name of our clinic to the low back pain clinic, thinking that was the place we should be in before we finally really understood what we were doing. So I've watched patients chase symptoms for decades before realizing that subluxation was the issue. So you need to have the strategies to put subluxation in your vocabulary regularly. Regularly. I purposely wanted to say subluxation 11 times during my examination. 11 times. So start telling the truth about drugs and how severe they are. If you don't have an empty drug container, like for the empty drug bottles in your office, get a Rubbermaid container that's clear that you can see through and start and put a big label on it and say um, unnecessary pill bottles. And people will literally bring in their empty pill bottles and some will bring them in half full and throw them in that container. And then you see this thing fill up and overflow, and people go, what is that? Well, that's all the people that have come in for chiropractic care that no longer need their heart medications, no longer need their antidepressants, their cholesterol meds, no longer need arthritis medications or pain medications. So this is really important stuff. Tell the truth about injections. Don't be afraid to tell the truth about that stuff. And in the temporary relief cycle, you're not getting to the root cause of the problem if you're only searching for temporary relief. Remember, the psychology behind it is that people trust those who acknowledge the reality. When you start acknowledging what's going on in the world, you gain trust. You have nothing to gain by telling people about the tragedy of medicine. And they realize that. If you're only there to promote chiropractic care, people look at that as self promotion. And that's a loss of trust. But when you start to condemn what's happening in the world for the betterment of the world, then people start to say, hey, this person knows exactly what they're talking about. So when you name the struggle patients are already living in, but they haven't yet articulated, you become the safe and credible source. Okay. Any other questions? Strategy four. This is called the adventurer frame. Okay, so you are now the guide. Remember, so position yourself or picture yourself as not necessarily the doctor. You are the guide. You're guiding them to make the right decisions about their recovery, about their rehabilitation, about their restructural correction, their neurological improvement. So the chiropractic application is that this is now a journey. It's a journey of discovery and learning, and your spine will show us exactly how your body adapts over time. We'll reassess and let your nervous system guide the process, right? So this is not about fixing the problem. This is about creating an environment where their body can then adapt and heal. That's what it's all about. So now you're a place of healing. You're not a place of fixing or pain treatment. You are a place of healing. So you're listening to the body with them. And the psychology behind that is that patients want empowerment and they want partnership and leadership. And this builds trust without any type of ego. Okay. Everybody okay? So far, so good? Strategy five, name the enemy. When you have a common trait with the patient, when you have a common enemy, that again, you build this relationship with a patient because it's not them against you, it's you together with that patient fighting something else. And that's here's an interesting strategy is that always when I showed x-rays, I would not be standing in front of the x-ray talking at the patient. I would be standing beside the patient talking at the x-ray. It's a subtle thing, but it was almost like me and the patient together fighting what we see on the screen. And we'd be talking about subluxation. We'd be talking about the degeneration that we see on their x-ray and how we're going to fix that, how we're going to correct that, and how we're going to get their body healing. So it was us against what we saw on the x-ray. So it was all about subluxation. So really, and we made this very clear, was the chiropractic enemy was subluxation and medication. And I was very, very adamant to let everybody know that those two things disconnected the brain from the body. They were the two biggest things that disconnected the physical body from the metaphysical body, the body from the spirit. And anybody that was taking chronic medication or anybody that had chronic subluxation was disconnected and could never fulfill their life potential. They couldn't heal or function the way that God intended. And I made that very clear. So that is something that really is very powerful and is huge to help people change the way they think. So what happens is we stop symptom chasing. We condemn crisis-based healthcare, and I made sure that I was very articulate and very clear on letting them know that we have an incredibly great sickness care system for first aid and emergency care. And and use all kinds of examples. I break my arm, I'm not going to the chiropractor. If I have a severe car accident and I'm bleeding, and I need stitches, I'm not going to the chiropractor. That's where the crisis care system is wonderful. So we can't keep normalizing degeneration, which we look at as subluxation, degeneration. That's not normal aging. Okay, we have to make sure people understand that. And silencing the body instead of restoring function is not good. Like just covering up the symptoms with chemicals and medication, it doesn't help. You're disconnecting the way that the body wants to function. We need to restore function, remove the interference, allow the body to adapt. So say it calmly, confidently, but be unapologetic for your position. Take your position, take your stand, and be unapologetic. And here's the thing, be okay if people think you're a quack or a kook. Be okay with that because the majority of them are going to say, yes, I wish somebody would have told me this a long time ago. But you might have the odd one that goes, you're a kook, and they want to go take their medication. Well, that's okay. God bless them. They'll never be a good chiropractic patient anyway, and they probably would create a lot of chaos for your staff anyway. So be okay to let them go. But in the meantime, you're going to take 9 out of 10 of those people and convert them into lifelong chiropractic patients. So remember, the psychology behind this is that you create this tribe. You create this tribe where you and your office, your team are seen as the leaders of this tribe because you cast a vision and people buy into that vision. So it's a shared opposition that creates this tribal alignment. Patients feel relief when someone finally says, what you've been told doesn't actually make sense. Or when you tell them, you have been lied to. You've been lied to by the medical system. You've been lied to by your medical doctor. Here's the proof. Here's like it's common sense. Sometimes you don't need to show any type of proof. It's just common sense. They just need to wake up and see it. And once you share that with them, it's amazing how many people just wake up and see it. So you become their advocate, not just their provider. Any comments? All good so far. Cool.
Where's everybody as far as care plans go? Like, at what point do you find that people start being unsure or saying no, or I got to go home and think about it? Like, where the parts you guys are seeing are the gaps before we get through all the strategies? Everyone's getting 100% lifetime care.
No, of course not. I think for us in our office, I think um, honestly, we're just having trouble keeping up with the volume. You saw my questions this week about syncing in x-rays. So for us, it's just the volume of stuff coming through, and sometimes maybe we're not as prepared as we need to be. And so it might not happen on the first day, but it might happen on the second or third day. But um, yeah.
And I'm going to say, Christine, that's a coaching thing. Like, so you're saying you're having trouble keeping up with the volume, but I'm gonna bet that the stuff that you're having a hard time keeping up with, most of which somebody could do. Like that's probably not doctor dependent stuff.
It's like x-rays. I was asking Brian about x-rays. We're just syncing in the number of reports. So actually this week, Dylan is actually going to sit in on me with me in my report of findings because I can't, I'm getting to a point now where I don't have enough space in my schedule because we don't have enough tables. So we just, yeah. Well, we're going through staffing issues as well. So there's like a lot of movement in the office. So I just need some more help. So Dylan is going to sit down on my reports with me, so that we can move people quicker through the clinic.
So one thing I'd suggest to you, Christine, is document where the gaps are, how long each process takes. And I know you
Yeah.
coach one-on-one with Colin, so I'd bring this to the next coaching call. But to give you a bit of an idea on things with the right systems in place,
Yep.
we have in my office, we have, well, if I look at December, 35 new patients and 40 re-signs that month. Those are all X-ray reports. Those are all
Ah,
care signups. Those are all care re-signs, in addition to all the other re-exams that happen.
yep.
And I wouldn't say anyone in the office feels like they're drowning in it. So there's something systematically that's not quite right. And so I would start looking at that, and that's something to go through. Like Colin can go through that on your next call with you. There's going to
Yeah.
be some systems that are broken
Oh,
that because this is the challenge when the workload bogs you down, you no longer are in your gifting and you're no longer like serving or being the benefit to your community that you say you want to be, right? So it becomes contradicting. So it's like I got to figure this out. And I can tell you a lot of the things I put into play at first, I was a bit resistant. I'm like, do I want to do that? But as I got into it, I found patients like it more. Like we're doing a lot of stuff now. Like I'm trying to reimagine things to make it easier for patients. We've done a lot of things like the same way for a long time, but how do we make things even faster and easier for patients? So less time, unless they want more time in those processes. It will free us up as well. But the big thing is to make it easier for patients because some of the people who've been around for 20 years, it's like, I don't think they see the benefit. So if they don't see the benefit, we got to figure out how we improve it.
right. Yeah, so we actually had a meeting last night about what's breaking down, but we're also going through staffing. We just lost a staff person. So that creates a problem because we're trying to reach, we just had somebody trained and she moved. So that it creates a big hole when you are down a staff person, right? and you're
So
trying to,
again, just for mind expansion,
yeah.
I'm losing my tech.
Oh no,
Guess who's doing it all?
you.
Right? So the docs are. So I've just we've gone we just eliminated a ton of steps this week because we're like, okay, there's a 3 week transition, but I'm like, I don't think we get anyone else in that place well. But I look at that role and I guarantee 60% of her time is based on admin stuff. So I'm like, I think we can cut that down
Yeah,
significantly and we can gobble this up. Again, it's all mind expansion. It's
I
all
know. Yeah.
being free to do it differently, thinking about how does the patient get the result, not this is the way I've done it or this is the way I'm comfortable. How does the patient get the result that we can manage this?
Well, and that's why I asked you about the X-ray reading tool because I'm like, there has to be a way that we can shorten our time doing this.
Yep, I'm exploring moving over from ChiroSite.
Yeah,
So this is interesting because not to get too far off topic as far as this goes, but here's the thing, Christine, and this is really for everybody, is that the systems that grew your office to 100 patients a week are going to be very different than the systems that grow your office to 250 are then going to be very different to grow your office to
yeah,
400 or 500 or
yeah,
then going to be very different to grow to 750, 1,000 and beyond. So
yeah.
but these are
And
all things that have to be adapting and changing.
yeah, in the new office that we're going to, we have a separate new patient and exam room so that I can still adjust and somebody else can do the new patient intake. So we are making changes to have more Cairo space and putting it more at the forefront. So again, because we're seeing more volume, we're recognizing that somebody needs to be adjusting, but somebody needs to be able to do reports and exams at the same time if that's what we need to do. So we're trying to set it up that way.
These are good problems to have. I mean, it's a
Yeah, I
sign of
know.
growing,
I'm
right?
not
So,
complaining.
yeah.
I'm grateful every day.
Okay, strategy six. So this is where we can actually start to invert the objections before the objections become objections, right? So the reason they hesitate is the reason that they really need care. So common patient objections, if they can be reframed, especially if they can be pre-framed, you start to diminish the number of objections you get. So of course everybody says, I don't have time. You get this all, or everybody receives the objection, you don't have time. And that's usually a sign that your nervous system is already under stress. When somebody says they don't have time to get healthy, they don't have time for chiropractic care. I mean, how long does it take to start a course of chiropractic care? They're coming in 3 times a week. They might spend maybe 15 minutes in your office total. It really is not a huge time commitment. So typically that's a sign that people are already neurologically in chaos. So that's something that we need to address. I just want to feel better. I just want to get out of pain. Well, pain relief happens fastest when function is restored, right? That's something that we really have to help them to understand. The cheapest and quickest way to get pain relief is go take pills. Go take a medication. That's the cheapest and quickest way to get pain relief. If that's what you want, go for it. I mean, but if you want something greater than that, if you want to get to the root cause, if you want your body to function better, if you want your body's ability to take care of itself to be enhanced, that's where that's where we have to really address the function, the correct the subluxation, remove the interference. I've tried chiropractic before. Well, most chiropractors are symptom-based chiropractors. They're not focusing on subluxation correction. They're not focusing on neurological improvement or corrective care, right? So make sure that we're addressing that is that what you do, and this is one thing that we talk about with your team, make sure your team know how to position your office for the patient. Make sure your team know the script to explain to the patient why you are different. If you can't go to your team and say, hey, Hannah, why is our office different? Hey, Camille, what makes our office different? And if they can't give you a 20 to 30-second articulately carved speech on why your office is different and unique and better, that's something you need to train on. Um, I can't afford it. I mean, we've all heard that before. Well, the big question is, what will it cost you if you don't get this corrected? And I always go back to that. Well, I don't know if I can afford this. Okay, well, what does that mean? If you don't do this, is this going to get better or worse? And if this gets worse, how's that going to affect your function, your life, your ability to work, your relationships, your time with your children, your life on this earth? Like, that's something that people need to know. And the psychology behind it is that objections aren't rejection. Just because they have an objection, it doesn't mean they don't want chiropractic care. It just means it's an unresolved gap in their understanding. So when reframed with respect, the resistance starts to collapse. Strategy number 7 of the paradigm shift. Well, future pacing the chiropractic life. So we start talking in terms of a chiropractic lifestyle. What does that mean? Well, beyond the life of pain relief, chiropractic means more energy, it means better sleep, it means stronger immune system response, it means fewer breakdowns, it means a greater ability to adapt as you age, means no need for medications in the future. And this is a great question, is to ask them, especially people who are in their 40s or 50s, even 30s, what are their parents suffering from? How does their parents' life look like? Do they want to have, especially if their parents are having challenges, they're taking, prescriptions. For many of them, their parents are in, my age gap in their 60s or therefore into their 70s or older, and they're taking multiple prescriptions and have some limited mobility, or maybe they don't have mobility, or they're dependent on long-term care, whatever that is. Do they want their life to look like that? That's a great question and a huge revelation for people. So the example is, imagine your body adapting the way it was designed to, not just now, but decades from now. That's what chiropractic lifetime care can bring. So people buy the vision. Cast your vision, not the services. So stop talking about the services so much. Talk about the vision for their life. They want to believe their future self will thank them. Strategy number 8, status shift framing. So we want to take them from thinking that they are a patient in our office, and that's why a lot of offices will use the term practice member or steward of their nervous system. They're doing the things to optimize the function of their nervous system. It's a shift in identity. So it's taking them from this reactive, dependent, crisis-based mindset to more of a proactive, conscious, intentional, self-responsible mindset. So your language really, really matters. People who correct their spine think differently about their health. And I would say this to people. People that correct their spine, people that engage in lifetime chiropractic care, this is common that I would talk about this in doctor's reports. People that have been here for years under regular chiropractic care think differently about their health. They're the ones that want to have vitality. They're the ones that are choosing to eat well. They're the ones that want to have energy, that want to have great relationships. They're the ones that want to see a future for their life after retirement, that they have vibrancy. This is how people who value longevity care for their body. And the psychology behind that is people will protect their own self identity more than their comfort. So once someone sees themselves as a health conscious individual, maintenance just becomes automatic. Chiropractic care becomes automatic. So if you can help them understand or help them be revealed to themselves that they do value a life of full vibrancy, then you give them the opportunity to make this decision that chiropractic care should be part of their regular health maintenance plan. Going to the gym, eating organic food, you know, having a good nutritional diet, taking supplements, taking vitamins. These things are just all natural. They all fit together. Strategy number 9, identity activation. So this feels like me. So in other words, once you can set the stage and set this mind frame, you get people thinking that, gosh, this is a place that I like being at. I feel the vibrancy. I feel the energy. We used to have people come in and say, I feel different as I walk in this office because it was a different level of energy. And you'll get it in your office. You'll have those people that get it because you talk differently, you think differently, the atmosphere is very different. So speak directly to who they already are or who they want to be. So if you believe your body was designed to heal, start talking this way. Start talking in a way that people understand that healing is a a thing that is built into them. It is a spiritual thing. It is a thing that once you relieve the physical stress of this body, once you remove the subluxation and you allow that nervous system to function fully, you release something that's metaphysical. You release life in the body. And when they start understanding that, they start getting that how you connect the dots. Chiropractic connects that spiritual existence and just their quest for vibrancy, it connects it together. You are the answer to connect those things together. So if you want your nervous system functioning fully for life, chiropractic care has to be a regular thing that you do. They self-select into care. And the psychology behind that is there's this consistency bias that once someone says, that's me, I get it, that's what I want, that's what I've been waiting to hear. Why didn't somebody else tell me that before? Why has nobody ever mentioned this to me? Then what happens is they start to behave in alignment with that identity, and you are now the answer for that. And then the last one, strategy 10, I call this dangerous simplicity. In other words, we overcomplicate things way too much. So most of you are talking way too much. Like, if you're having bottlenecks, Christine, as we just talked about, if you're having bottlenecks where you just can't keep up, a lot of times you're spending way too much time with people. You're talking way too much. You're avoiding getting to the root cause of the problem or helping them understand the root cause. So keep it simple. So reduce everything to this is that we remove the interference so your body can do what it was designed to do. We remove the interference so God can do the healing. Like it's so simple. And so many of you resist saying things like that because it feels awkward. It feels squeamish. What are people going to think of me? You know what? I'm going to challenge you. Just try it. Go in your office today, adjust somebody and say, I'm moving the bone, God's doing the healing, and watch what happens. Like you think you're gonna get shivers down your spine thinking, oh, people are gonna think I'm a kook. But watch how many people get off the table and give you a high five or give you a hug and tell you how grateful they are to be in your office. It is life changing. So start thinking that way, start talking that way, and watch what happens to your practice. So it's just simple. So you're not trying to teach them. There's no jargon, there's no overload. You're not defending anything. And the whole psychology behind it, it's simple, so it creates momentum. And then people think they've spent the entire day with you when they've only been in your presence for 45 seconds. And that because that present time consciousness is there and you create this bond with that person. And so when the path feels obvious, people move. So the final thing, you guys, is that this is not about selling chiropractic. This is about restoring context in a world that has lost it, right? There's nothing more natural in healthcare than chiropractic, than the principle of chiropractic. We put nothing into the body, we take nothing out of the body. All we do is we remove the interference for what God already put in there. And if you can help patients understand that's all you do. Remove the interference. God's already put the healing that they need in there. All you're doing is releasing it. And wow, what happens to your practice is unbelievable. You have people that want to stay with you for the rest of their life, bring their kids, bring their family, refer everybody that they know. It's all about the intelligence of the body, the central role of the nervous system, and devastation of subluxation, and the responsibility and privilege of stewardship from birth to death. And when patients see clearly, care becomes the obvious choice.